Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and the first High on Life was kind of a breath of fresh air back in 2022. As an FPS, it's not the strongest of all time, but in a sea of games that kind of take themselves a little seriously, it was fun to play something that had some effort behind it, but felt like this sort of rolling total of things that were happening as it was happening. Even, obviously, yes, it was improvised, but also, it's a video game. You can't improvise a video game. And I know the Rick and Morty style humor can be hit or miss, but when it hit, it really hit. Now, only a few years later, we have High on Life 2, and it is not the game I expected. It is a lot more ambitious. It's a much more gameplay-focused experience, and it wants to stop you dead in your tracks once in a while for extended comedy, but on the whole, it's a much more balanced experience between trying to be funny and being a game. There's less rambly dialogue, fewer moments where it feels like you're just making things up on the spot. And while it does take away a little bit of the feeling of absurd spontaneity of the original, the experience is just a lot more coherent. It grounds you in a world that feels a little bit more like an actual place, but with comedy bits rather than a zone of complete nonsense. It's sort of like the difference between The Curse of Monkey Island versus Conker's Bad Fur Day. Probably doesn't sound like that significant of a distinction, but if you play the games back to back, there is a huge difference in tone between those things, and that applies here to High on Life 2, despite the sequel being a direct continuation of the first game's, let's call it a plot. In the first High on Life, Earth was invaded, and humanity was packaged and sold as an illegal drug by a space cartel. Now in the sequel, Big Pharma is getting their turn, which, I have to say well done on that. Transforming humans into a drug called Humanzapro that, it's just as absurd and sinister as the first game, except for this time they are on the right side of the law. So in order to take down this higher rung of drug peddler, you have to become an outlaw. In practical terms, it's not a huge change. You're still exploring semi-open world areas, going on missions, killing specific targets, wielding a slew of chatty guns called Gatlians. It's still that. A few old faces return, along with some new ones, giving you a more well-rounded and satisfying arsenal of weapons right from the start. Along with the guns, the other major new feature introduced in the game is the skateboard. Before release, I was concerned. A Tony Hawk game this is not, and what is a skateboard doing here? That could go horrifically wrong if it had been poorly implemented. However, it was not. The skateboard is actually great. It is an essential tool that makes High on Life 2 feel like a big step up from the first game in both combat design and level design in general. It's a really fun addition that gives this game a bit of a Sunset Overdrive energy. Not something I was expecting, but a pleasant surprise nonetheless. Just wandering around the environment, grinding on rails, kick flipping off walls, it's a ton of fun, and the vast majority of the combat takes full advantage of the skateboard to make some extremely fast and dynamic stuff happen. I might just be a sucker for games that you can grind on rails and shoot stuff, at least if they do it well. But hey, they do it well. The skateboard, I'm not joking, is the biggest game changer in High on Life 2, and its inclusion makes the game better overall. In fact, I dare say the inclusion of the skateboard gives the game more of an identity that isn't based in just nonsense. In contrast, the actual shooting is still adequate. It's not gonna hold a candle to some of the best shooters in the business, but it's also, it's good. It's certainly not awful. A lot of the Gatling weapons still feel a little weightless and a little insubstantial when they're fired. Not a lot of power behind the shooting. And Gus, the game's version of the shotgun, is still charmingly voiced by JB Smoove, thankfully, but is still, unfortunately, a weak feeling to fire. Some of the new guns fare better, like Sheath, a 3-shot battle rifle. The gun has some punch, but a lot of the returning weapons pretty much feel the same as they did in the first game. Also, like the original, don't go into this expecting non-stop action. It's not that. High on Life 2 is as likely to lock you into a long, meandering comedy cutscene as the first game is, but this time, they do at least try to sprinkle in combat more, so you're not completely starved of action for so long. This is most illustrated in the beginning of the game, which the original had a really slow beginning. It stuck you with only one gun, and High on Life 2, you immediately jump into a big action set piece. You have access to a couple of weapons and knifey right from the start, it's better. This game's quick to give you the skateboard, too. They know this is a good thing. It really does add. There seems to be a concentrated effort to just get away from the slowness of the first game, get moving in the first, opening hours. The plots developed a little bit more with gravity this time, maybe a little more serious from the jump, but it's still a really stupid game. It's got lots of ridiculous references, potty humor, swearing. There's jokes where the punchline is that you murder a guy. The world this game takes place is mostly a ring world called Circuit Arcadia. It feels a bit more like an actual breathing place than a vector for dumb stoner comedy. By all degrees, I'm talking about this stuff in comparison to the first game. If you compare High on Life 2 to any other game, it's still batshit insane, just absolutely full of stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's an alien world where you can play Bible adventures on an arcade machine. There's a Fraser crane game where you win Fraser-themed pillows for your bed. That's in this game. The environmental details are top-notch. They went even further with the random movies that get played on a TV and in a new movie theater. There's 6 movies you can watch in this game, some with full running commentary. There's a lot more to do as well. The game can sometimes really surprise you with side content, like this random escape room I unlocked. I assumed it would just be a little room with some treasure in it, but it ended up being, like, way more. I don't want to spoil it because it's really worth finding on your own, but, like, there's madness sprinkled all over this game, and it's so satisfying when you stumble upon some random rabbit hole and it ends up going so much deeper than you would guess that a game like this would do. Like, the missions in general go way further than the previous game as well. There's really some incredible stuff that happens in this game. It needs to be seen to be believed. Not all of it is actively hilarious or perfectly executed in terms of gameplay, but this game really has some bizarre and creative scenarios, some of the most bizarre and creative I've seen. And I appreciate that they actually tried to give you something to do during these bits. Like in one early mission, you participate in a murder mystery, and you might assume it's a gag and they're going to do some stupid rug pull on the end where there's no way someone could actually solve it, but they do give you the clues to put the whole thing together, come up with a solution, and I appreciate that. Things like that make these types of segments not seem like an intentional waste of your time. I mean, yeah, some of them are intentional wastes of time. Like, I don't think it could be this kind of a game with this type of humor and not have some of that, but at least the punchline isn't always, ha, we wasted your time. I mean, I've gotten this far, and I haven't even mentioned how impressive this game looks. Like, in the graphics department, this is a huge step up from the first game. It takes full advantage of the Unreal Engine. It really makes some impressive locations to explore. The downtown area, for instance, really crazy looking. The beachfront zone's even more impressive. It's larger than it first appears. There's a lot of rough edges and certain areas that don't look nearly as good as others, but for the most part, it's a really graphically impressive game that ran pretty well on max settings, too, which is how I played the game on PC. I rarely encountered stutter. For the most part, it was silky smooth. I did encounter a few bugs, I will say. The game did freeze after dying in a boss fight, and in a different fight, the boss got stuck. I couldn't do any more damage to them, but at least both times the game's generous checkpoint system meant I didn't have to start either of the fights back from scratch. Some of the boss encounters here feel a little overly long and drawn out, but they generally do more interesting things. And for the most part, they're fun to take on, at least on normal. It helps that the skateboard allows you to quickly retreat when your health is low, and it makes it much easier to survive certain encounters when you can just hit the bricks, the first sign of danger. Still, bugs. There are bugs, especially ones that hit you during what are supposed to be cinematic encounters. It's not great. I do hope they're quick about fixing some of this stuff because it does hurt what's otherwise a pretty polished experience. I do want to give a special shout out to the music too. It's going for this kind of acid synthwave that perfectly fits the weirdo vibes. The sound is still a weak spot. A lot of the weapons just feel weak. Some of that comes down to sound effects, but I mean, what are you going to do? This is kind of where they started from, and I think it's something they're actively working on fixing. The one thing I can praise about the sound is the stacked voice cast. Includes guys like Ken Marino, Coen Brothers alum Richard Kind, Ralph Ineson, the guy with the booming voice from The Witch, among many other roles. Hearing his voice in this really goofy comedy game, it never stops feeling bizarre in a good way. So there's a lot to like here, especially if you like goofy 90s commercials, because there's a lot of that. There's an endless string of them playing in your bedroom. The big question is whether it's funny or not. I mean, that's kind of an important thing for a game where so much time is spent stopping dead in its tracks to deliver jokes. And I'm going to say there's some very funny stuff here. That's subjective. Not everything lands even with me. It's inevitable. Something throwing this much stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Some of it is going to stick. At least more stuff sticks than falls for me. Again, I'm not going to be able to speak for everybody. Comedy is very, very, perhaps one of the most subjective things in life. no matter how high one is on it. But the things that are meant to be standout moments, in my opinion, mostly hit. I did think that the first game was pretty funny as well, so take that with a grain of salt, but I have to say this one doesn't feel like it's trying as hard to be funny. It's less shouty, the delivery doesn't come off as much improvised. I mean, it comes off improvised, that's kind of the style, but I think some of it is going to be less divisive this time around. It's mostly just your usual jokes, not quite hanging its hat on being Rick and Morty exactly in the way that the first one was, and part of that is due to Justin Roiland not being involved with it. That's a whole lot to say. I do think this game is pretty funny. It's pretty fun, too. The shooting isn't as improved as I would have liked, but it is improved. I'll say a weak feeling shotgun should be a crime against gaming. It's a black mark against this particular game, but there's enough good here that I'm willing to forgive that particular transgression. The skateboarding mechanic, it is transformative. Like, seriously, it's easy to use. It makes everything in the game a lot more fun. Exploring is more fun for skateboarding. Combat is more fun for skateboarding. It's just a big improvement that does a hell of a lot to make this game better. If you absolutely hated the first High on Life, there's a chance you might like this one. I'm going to say they changed enough about it that depending on what your personal concerns are, they may have been addressed, but it's also not a completely different game. It's more confident, it's more varied, it's an overall more fun version of the first game that, while it still has some of the warts of the original, it's a longer and just better game. For people who want a surprisingly decent first-person skateboarding game, sometimes laughed out loud funny comedy, and like mostly a decent shooter, I feel like, yeah, it's not cheap. It's a full $60 game, but at least it's not a full $70 or $80 game. And I would say it's definitely long enough. There's enough content here to make it worth the asking price. Comedy, again, highly subjective, but I think objectively speaking, it is a pretty significant improvement over the first game, as long as you know what you're getting into and set your expectations accordingly. I love it. If you're like me, you'll probably enjoy High on Life too. It was worth $60 for me, but what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Click the join button, become part of the 1% Club, and get the exclusive Falcon Show every Saturday. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.
Good night, Seattle!
Thank you, caller. Stay tuned for Bulldog.